Okay, we're going to talk about money in Harry Potter, and I don't know how many of you are actually familiar with the money in Harry Potter, in the Harry Potter universe, but there's three forms of coins, just like we have, in Canadian money, we have nickels and dimes and loonies and toonies, and but here in the Harry Potter universe, we've got bronze canutes, silver sickles, and golden galleons. And they're related to each other in kind of the same way. There's 2 nickels in a dime, or 20 nickels in a loonie, or something like that. So in the Harry Potter universe, there's 29 canutes in 1 sickle and 17 sickles in 1 galleon. And that, I don't know about you, but that seems pretty odd. But we'll work with it for right now. So we have a couple questions for you. The first question is, how many canutes would be in 8 sickles? Now, if you're a mathy kind of person, you can work this out relatively easy. But if you're not a mathy kind of person, we're going to use something called unit analysis or dimensional analysis, okay? So we're going to use something called dimensional analysis to be able to answer this problem. So I'm going to start with 8 sickles, because that's what I know I have. And I'm going to multiply by a conversion factor. Now, the conversion factor is 2 things related to each other, but you write it as a fraction, okay? So if we want to turn sickles into canutes, we want to know how many canutes are in 8 sickles. So we need to have a relationship between canutes and sickles. How many canutes are in how many sickles? Do we have a relationship? And we certainly do. We've got 29 canutes in 1 sickle. So I'm going to write that as if it's a fraction. But there's 2 ways that I could write this in a fraction. I could go 29 canutes in 1 sickle. So what that means is there's 29 canutes per 1 sickle, or I could write it the other way. I could say 1 sickle, there is 1 sickle in every 29 canutes, because they're equal to each other. They have the same monetary value. It's like saying, I'll trade you a $5 bill for 5 loonies. They are worth the same amount of money, and that's the same as these 29 canutes is worth 1 sickle. So when we're converting these kind of weird units, what you want to think about is you want to think about canceling out the unit that you don't want anymore. You cancel out the unit that you don't want anymore. It's a lot like, what's 5 divided by 5? What's that? Well, they cancel out and you get 1. So what's 15 divided by 15? Well, they cancel out, you get 1. Well, what's, 17 million divided by 17 million? Well, they cancel out and you just get 1. And so you can do the same thing for basically anything in math. What's x divided by x? Well, we don't know what x is, but it's the same thing on the top and the bottom. Anything divided by itself cancels out and you just get 1. You get a value of 1, and it has no units. So you cancel out the unit. Hopefully that makes sense. So if we want to get rid of sickles and turn them into canutes, we want to put sickles in the bottom of the fraction. So here I've got sickles on the top here. I don't want to go sickles times sickles, because that's going to give me, those of us who are really mathy people, that's going to give us sickles squared. And we don't want that. We want to be able to write this fraction in whatever way allows the unit that we don't want anymore to be canceled out. So if sickles are starting in kind of, you can think of this as like the top of a fraction, then we want to write sickles in the bottom of a fraction. So 1 sickle is equal to 29 canutes. So sickles and sickles cancels out. And the only unit we're left with is Kilometres. Sorry, I just had a phone call. So what we're going to do is we've got our units on top, canceling out with the units on the bottom, because if I take sickles times Kilometres divided by sickles, sickles divided by sickles, they cancel out, and we're just left with 1. So then 8 times 29 is 232. So 232, and the unit we're left with is Kilometres. Okay, hopefully that was okay. Hopefully that wasn't too bad. So we're going to use this idea of taking the unit that we don't want and canceling it out. We're going to use this idea here in our conversions today. I know some of us aren't mathy people, but just stick with me and hopefully it'll make a little bit of sense. And we'll keep using this throughout the semester, and so hopefully we'll slowly get used to it. So here we're actually getting to a little bit of physics, a little bit of math here. So when we're converting more complex units like things that aren't a power of 10. When we were doing our metric conversions, 5.3 kilograms is how many grams, right? So this is a big unit going into a small unit, so we're going to move the decimal 3 times to make the number bigger. So 5,300 grams, right? So that was just moving the decimal. That wasn't really a lot of like multiplying or dividing or anything like that, even though we were multiplying and dividing. But we're going to have to use this idea of unit analysis here to be able to convert between some different types of units. So in our physics unit, we need to convert units that are not powers of 10, a lot like time. So let's think about this. How many seconds are in 1 minute? Well, hopefully you know 1 minute is equal to 60 seconds. Now I can write that in a couple different ways. I can say there's 1 minute in 60 seconds, or I can say there's 60 seconds in 1 minute. So this is 60 seconds per 1 minute. So both of these things make sense. It just depends on which way you want to use it to cancel out a unit. So how many seconds are in 1 hour? Ooh, that one's a little bit tougher. So there's 60 seconds in 1 minute, and we need to know how many minutes are in an hour. How many minutes are in an hour? Yeah, 60 minutes. So we'll go, so there's times, oh, that's terrible. 60 minutes in 1 hour. And so hopefully you can kind of see how the minutes and minutes, because they're on opposite sides of a fraction, one's in the top, right? You can think of this as being, there's a minutes anywhere in the top and minutes anywhere in the bottom, and they cancel each other out. So now that means that there's 60 times 60 is 3,600 seconds in 1 hour. Or you can think about it as 1 hour is 3,600 seconds. Either way you want to look at it, they're both correct. It just depends on how you want to work it. So now let's actually use some unit analysis. How many seconds are in 3.5 minutes? So I'm going to start with 3.5 minutes, and I'm going to multiply by a fraction because I can't just move the decimal. You can't say there's 35 seconds in 3.5 minutes. That doesn't make any sense. So we have to multiply by a conversion factor, and a conversion factor is just a relationship between two things. How many things are equal to other things? That's all it is. So I need you to understand, if something is by itself, if there's no fraction, if we're not starting with a fraction, then all that means is there's the number 1 in the bottom, because anything divided by 1 doesn't change, right? So 3.5 minutes times, we want to turn it into seconds. So we need to put seconds somewhere, and we need to put minutes somewhere. So if I put minutes here and seconds here, will that cancel out the minutes? Are the minutes on opposite sides of the fraction? Well, I see I got one on the top and another one on the top. Ooh, that's not going to cancel. That's no bueno. So I got to put minutes in the bottom and seconds in the top. Well, how many minutes are equal to how many seconds? 1 minute is 60 seconds. So 1 minute is 60 seconds. And then we just treat this as if we were multiplying any other math problem. So minutes divided by minutes, and I'll go 3.5 times 60 divided by, and I only have ones in the bottom, so you can go, okay, divided by 1, sure, whatever. But 3.5 times 60 is 210 seconds. So the only unit we're left with, let's take a look here. Minutes are gone, seconds are still here, so I've got seconds, minutes are gone. So it looks like my only unit left is seconds, and that's good. That's exactly what we wanted. How many hours are in 5,000 seconds? So, okay, I'll start with 5,000 seconds, and I'll multiply it so that I need seconds and hours. I need to know which seconds and hours and how many are equal to each other, right? Where do I want to put the seconds? Remember, this is divided by 1. So we're wondering, so 5,000 seconds, remember seconds is in the top. We're just dividing by 1 because there is no fraction here, right? And we're going to multiply by, and we got it by some relationship between hours and seconds, and we can't have hours, or we can't have seconds in the same spot as we do right now. So seconds is on top. We can't have seconds on the top here because then they're not going to cancel out. So we have to put seconds on the bottom and hours on the top. Well, what's the relationship between hours and seconds? And this is a relationship that you should probably memorize, that there is 3,600 seconds every hour. 1 hour is 3,600 seconds, or 3,600 seconds in an hour. It's kind of the same thing. So every 1 hour is 3,600 seconds. So what I'm going to do, 5,000 seconds divided by 1. So the 1 doesn't matter, right? When you divide by 1, it doesn't do anything. 5,000 seconds times 1 hours, then divided by 3,600 seconds. So the seconds and the seconds cancel out, and we're left with hours. And when we do this, when we perform that calculation, we get 1.38888888. So we get 1.388888 forever hours. But keep in mind, we had 4 significant digits to start with, so we need 4 significant digits to end with. 1.388, and the next 8 is going to round that 8 up to a 9, so 1.389 hours. That's how many hours are in 5,000 seconds. Okay, we also have to be able to convert values that have multiple different units. So as an example, it's the question's giving us convert 60 kilometers per hour into meters per second. And if you don't know what kilometers per hour is, that's a unit of measurement for speed. So if you're driving down the road, you could be driving down the road at 60 kilometers per hour. So that's just a very common example of a speed limit. And so when I need you to know that when somebody writes kilometers / hours, they really mean kilometers in 1 hour. How many kilometers would you travel in 1 hour? So you would travel 60 kilometers in 1 hour. That's what they mean. So when I say, a rocket travels at 1,000 kilometers per hour, it really means that in 1 hour it would go 1,000 kilometers. Now that's a pretty slow rocket, but that's okay. So we're going to use this. We're going to convert kilometers per hour into, we want to turn it into something with meters per second. And the meters, well, you can think of this as two separate conversions, okay? For each unit, we're going to do a conversion. Kilometers into meters is really easy. Now, we did that a lot yesterday. We'll just think back to our metric conversion chart. Remember, if we want to go kilometer into meter, we're just going to move the decimal 3 times. And we're going from a big unit to a small unit, so our number has to get bigger. It's kind of the opposite, right? Many small units makes a big unit. So as we go back, to our conversion here, so 60 kilometers per 1 hour. So if we move the decimal, right, 60, we're going to move it 3 times. 1, 2, 3 becomes 60,000, right? So 60,000 meters per 1 hour. So I'm just going to change that to hours right now. Then all you got to do, hours. All you have to do is convert hours into seconds, and we did that. We just did that a few minutes ago. So here's an example. So we have 60 kilometers per hour, and they're turning it into 60,000 meters per hour. You can do this through unit analysis, or you can do it through our simple decimal movement, right? Our regular metric conversions. And so we've already done that. 60 kilometers is 60,000 meters. So we just turned kilometers into meters. That's okay. So we're going to take our answer here, 60,000 meters per hour, and we're going to use it in the second step. So 60,000 meters per hour, and we're going to turn the hours into seconds. So when I have hours on the bottom, I multiply by a conversion factor that has hours in the top, so that hours can cancel. And the only units I'm left with, ignore the numbers right now, but the only units I'm left with, let's look on top, meters, nothing, so meters. And on bottom, nothing and seconds, so seconds, meters per second. And then we take our numbers, 60,000 times 1 is 60,000, divided by 3,600 is 16.666666, but they're rounding to 2 decimal places. They're just rounding to 2 decimal places. Okay, let's try this, but let's actually try it on our own. Convert 100 kilometers an hour, 100 kilometers an hour into meters per second. Well, I can turn kilometers into meters really, really easily, right? 100 kilometers, the decimal's here, so 1, 2, 3. So it's going to be 100 with 1, 2, 3 zeros. So that's 100,000 meters per hour, per 1 hour, right? Now let's turn the hours into seconds. So I'm going to multiply, and meters I'm happy with. Meters, that's good. We don't need to change that, but we want to turn hours into seconds. So if I have hours on the bottom, I need to put hours on the top and seconds in the bottom, so that we can cancel out the hours and get meters per second left over. So let's go ahead and try this. In 1 hour, there are 3,600 seconds. Okay, we talked about how you should probably memorize that. So what I'm going to do on my calculator, I'm going to go 100,000 times 1, which is 100,000, so you don't even have to do that, You go 100,000 times 1, then divided by 3,600. And the divided by 1 here is just, remember, times 1 or divided by 1 doesn't do anything. So just ignore the ones, right? 100,000 divided by 3,600. So when we do this, when we perform that calculation, we get 27.77777 blah, 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 blah. And our units are, well, hours and hours cancel out because they're on opposite sides of the fractions. So we're getting hours divided by hours, and they cancel. And so what are our units left? Meters and seconds, so meters per second. But let's do this properly. How many significant digits did we have at the beginning? When I look back at our original information, we had 3 significant digits, 1, 2, 3. So we need 3 significant digits. So the real answer is 27.8 meters per second. That's our real answer. Hopefully that kind of made sense. It's way easier if you do the metric conversion or your distance conversion first, because time, seconds and hours is technically metric, okay? So but we're gonna do our decimal sliding first, and then we can multiply to be able to change the other unit. Okay, 50 kilometers an hour into meters per second. Let's try this. 50 kilometers in 1 hour. So let's change 50 kilometers. So that's where the decimal is in 50. We're going from a big unit to a small unit, so the number has to get bigger. 1, 2, 3. So it's 50,000 now. 50,000 meters in 1 hour. So if you were traveling at 50 kilometers per hour, you would travel 50,000 meters in that 1 hour, because 50 kilometers is 50,000 meters. Now in the second step, let's turn hours into seconds. So we want to turn hours, so we got to put hours on the opposite side and put seconds on the bottom, because we want, remember, meters per second is really meters over seconds. We want seconds in the bottom. So how many seconds are in an hour? In 1 hour, there's 3,600 seconds. So when I do this, we're going to go 50,000 times 1 doesn't really matter, divided by 1 doesn't really matter, but divided by 3,600. So we will get 13.8888 blah, 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 blah. It's just going to continue on forever. And what are our units doing? Hours and hours cancel. We're left with meters and seconds. So meters per second. And what's our real answer? Let's go back to the original information. We're given 2 significant digits. So here's our 2 significant digits. And it includes the decimal, so we don't have to use scientific notation. That's awesome. So 14 meters per second. If you were traveling approximately 50 kilometers an hour, that's equivalent to approximately 14 meters per second. Okay, moving on. I'm going to do a couple calculations where we go the opposite way. We're going to go from meters per second to kilometers an hour. I'll do this in blue this time. So start off with 10 meters in 1 second. And let's turn meters into kilometers, okay? So we're going from a small unit to a big unit. So our decimal has to shift to the left because we want to make our number smaller. So 10, that's where the decimal is. And 1, 2, 3, so 0.010. Okay, cool. 0.010 kilometers every second. That's when you're traveling 10 meters per second, you're going 0.01 kilometers every second. Now let's turn the seconds into hours because we want kilometers per hour. So we got to put seconds on top and hours on the bottom. And we know that there are 3,600 seconds in every 1 hour. So when I put this into my calculator, 0.01 times 3,600 divided by 1. So you don't even have to divide it by anything because divided by 1 doesn't do anything. So this is going to give you exactly 36, which is good. 2 significant digits, fantastic. And what's happening to our units? Well, kilometers doesn't cancel out, so we get left with kilometers. Seconds cancels with seconds, and hours are left, so kilometers per hour. So that's our answer, 36 kilometers per hour. We're going to do one more, and then I'm going to ask you to pause the video and try out a bunch of the questions on the next page. And then if you want to see the solutions, just watch the rest of the video if you're having any problems. Okay, convert 5 meters per second to kilometers an hour. So 5 meters in 1 second, that's what that means, right? 5 meters every 1 second. So let's turn meters into kilometers first. So 5 meters, that's where the decimal is. So 1, 2, 3. So 0.005. 0.005 kilometers every second. And so we've turned meters per second into kilometers per second. But we still have to change seconds into hours. So I want to turn into hours. It's a terrible HR, and I need seconds so that seconds can cancel. So 3,600 seconds in 1 hour. Seconds and seconds cancel out. 0.005 times 3,600 is going to be 18 kilometers per hour. But the problem is one significant digit, and here's 2 significant digits. So I need 1 significant digit. So we have to say the 1's going to round up to a 2, but 2 times 10 to the 1 kilometers per hour. That's a tough one. I don't think that there are any really tough ones like that in the practice problems, but try the next page of practice problems. It's all sorts of, metric conversions, time conversions, complex conversions. Let me know if you have any questions. Watch the rest of the video if you have any problems, okay? Good luck. Have fun. Hope you had a good break. Okay, so this is all of the problems that I'm asking you to do, and we're going to do them relatively quickly. So 5.1 kilometers into meters. So we're going from a big unit to a small unit, so the number has to get bigger. Keep in mind that in our metric conversion, right, when we go from a big unit to a small unit, all we do is we take the difference in the exponent, right? Difference between 3 and 0 is 3. 3 minus 0 is 3. So that's 3 steps that we have to move our decimal place. So I got to move my decimal place 3 steps, going from a big unit to a small unit, so the number has to get bigger. So 5.1, so 1, 2, 3. And then fill in the rest with zeros. So 5.1 kilometers is equal to 5,100 meters. So we should be taking into account our number of significant digits, but again, we're going to get used to that a little bit later. This would be 2 significant digits, so 5.1 times 10 to the 3 meters, but we'll deal with that later. 0.6 grams into milligrams. So we'll go back to our table. So we'll go back to our table, and we're going grams into milligrams. So we're going from grams into milligrams. So we're going 0, 1, 2, 3. So that's 3 decimal places, and I got to make it bigger. Okay, so I got to move this 0.6. So 1, 2, 3. It goes there. 0, 0. So the decimal place is no longer here. It's here now. So that's 600 milligrams. So 0.6 grams is 600 milligrams. And one significant digit, so really we should be saying 6 times 10 to the 2 milligrams. That's what we should be saying, but we're not particularly worried about that right now. 4 minutes into hours. So remember, this isn't part of that metric chart, okay? This time doesn't follow our rules of 10. So what we have to do is we have to use an actual conversion factor. 4.00 minutes. How many minutes are in an hour? So we're going to go hours and minutes. Minutes were put on the bottom because we need them to cancel out. In 1 hour, there's 60 minutes. So when I do that calculation, 4 times 1 divided by 60, so 4 divided by 60 is 0.06666, blah, 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 blah. And the minutes and minutes cancel out, and I'm left with hours. So hours. So let's take a look at this. We need 3 significant digits. Here's 3 significant digits. The 6 is going to get rounded up to a 7. So we could say 0.0667 hours, or we could use scientific notation, 1, 2, 6.67 times 10 to the power of -2 hours. Either one of those is fine right now. We're just learning about this stuff, so that's fine. Next one, 5.89 hours into minutes. It's time, so we got to use a conversion factor. .89 hours. So I want to get rid of hours, so I'm going to put hours on the bottom, and I'm going to turn it into minutes. So in 1 hour, there's 60 minutes. So hours and hours cancel out because they're on opposite sides. We're left with minutes. 5.89 times 60 is 353. Whoops, do that in black. 353.4. And the only unit I'm left with is minutes. We got to round to 3 significant digits because that's how many we're given. These are our perfect definitions. There's exactly 60 minutes in 1 hour, so they have infinite number of significant digits. So 353, that's our 3 significant digits, and the 4 doesn't round the 3, so that's just 353 minutes. So 5.89 hours is approximately 353 minutes. Good. Let's keep going. 3.2 hours into seconds. 3.2 hours. Sometimes I write H, sometimes I write HR. So we want to get rid of hours, turn it into seconds. There's 3,600 seconds in 1 hour. Hours and hours cancel out. 3.2 times 3,600 is 11,520 seconds. And if we round this to 2 significant digits, right, it doesn't include the decimal, so we got to round this to 1.2. The 5 is going to round the 1 up to the 2. 1.2 times 10 to the 4 seconds. Good, and we would only round when you're done a problem, when you're done the final answer, not halfway through. Don't round halfway through because then you get all sorts of problems in that. Okay, 79.6 kilometers per hour into meters per second. we know how to do this. We just did this. 79.6 kilometers in 1 hour. Let's turn kilometers into meters. So I'm going to move the decimal. You should be used to this kind of right now. Move the decimal 3 times. Between kilo and meters is 3 times. So this is 79,600 meters in 1 hour. Whoa, that's a terrible hour. Man, I keep doing that. Whatever, it's fine. So now let's change hours into seconds. So put hours on opposite side to turn it into seconds. 1 hour, 3,600 seconds. So hours and hours cancel. We're left with meters per second. Good, that's what we wanted. We're going to get an answer of 22.111111 blah, 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 meters per second. So let's round this to 3 significant digits. Here's my 3 significant digits. It includes the decimal, so we don't have to use scientific notation. Perfect. 8,000 meters per second. Meters per 1 second. So turning meters into kilometers, going to move the decimal 3 times. So that's 8.000 kilometers in 1 hour, in 1 second. Holy, that's fast. 8,000 meters per second. Goodness gracious. And then we're going to turn seconds into hours. So seconds and hours, 1 hour is 3,600 seconds. Okay, last couple problems. We're turning 278,000 milliliters into liters. So we're going from a small unit to a big unit. So our numbers got to get smaller. So we're going to move our decimal place 3 times 1, 2, 3 to the left. So that's 278.000 liters. And the last one, 3.74 liters into milliliters. We're going from a big unit to a small unit. So the numbers got to get bigger. So we're going to move our decimal 3.74. We're going to move it 1, 2, 3. So that's 3,740 milliliters, but there's only 3 significant digits, so we gotta turn that 3.74 times 10 to the 3 milliliters. And so what I want to really stress is that don't worry about significant digits so much. As long as you can get these raw values, right, 3,740 milliliters, we'll worry about turning it into significant digits later. Hopefully that made sense. Let me know if you have any questions. Let me know if it doesn't make sense. Hopefully you had a good break. Yeah, I don't know. I had a good break. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow.